Hello, welcome to Oracle DBA02pro.com. This is Hassan Mir. In this tutorial, I'll be talking about extents and segments. Okay, so we already know the logical storage structure of Oracle. The table spaces are simply group of physical database files, and from logical end, you can break the table space further into segments. And if you drill down into segments, you will see extents, and if you drill down into extents, you're going to see blocks. Okay, and we already talked about that blocks consist of bytes. Okay, so now we need to take a look at extents and segments from a different perspective. Okay, and after this tutorial, I'll give you the take home. So we already know that extent consists of blocks. Okay, and the number of bytes a block has to be, in multiples of number of operating system bytes. Okay, so we talked about all that in last tutorial. Now extent is a group of blocks and segment is a group of extents. Okay, that's understandable, and we have of course gone through that in the first few tutorials as well. But what we need to understand is segment represents a database object like table, index, etc. Okay, so extent would be created, the segment would be created once you create the database object. Okay, so segment represents the database object. Now once the segment is created, of course initially it would have few extents. Okay, so another thing about segment is it's the smallest unit of storage that end user will deal with, because end users deal with tables, indexes, the database objects. Okay, so indirectly they're dealing with the segments. They don't have much control. Basically, they don't have any control over which extent they will be inserting data into. All they can say is, I want to insert data into this table, which would translate into, I want to insert this data into this segment. That's pretty much it. Okay, now Oracle will decide which extent the data will go into. Okay, so just remember that segment is the smallest unit of storage that end user can deal with. Okay, so when a database object like table is created, a segment is created in the database. Initially, fixed number of extents are given to the segment. Okay, and so let's say you create a table, a segment would be created with X number of extent. The initial number of extents given to a segment can be controlled. Of course, if you don't specify your preference, default values will come into picture. Or you can also specify your preferences, like for example in storage clause, as we're going to see in coming tutorials. Okay, so you can decide, or DBA can decide, or even when you're creating a table, end user can decide how many extent this segment would have, initial extent. And also you not only you can control the number of extent initially dedicated to the segment, you can also control the size of the initial extent. Size of extent simply means how many blocks that extent would have within it. Okay, when the table gets full, more extents need to be added to the segment. Okay, so what Oracle does, automatically adds more segments at the end, more extents to the segment. Number of extents are added that are added can be controlled as well, like when the first and two extent will be fully used, how many extent would be added after that, and what would be the size of those new extent. The size of the new extent could be different than the size of the initial extent, optionally. Okay, so the segment keeps on growing as the new data keeps on coming. Okay, so the take home is segment represents a database object. Okay, as soon as you create a database object, segment is created. Exceptions are there where you create one table and two segments are created if you're partitioning this table, but we're gonna do a step-by-step learning. Okay, so for just to understand, as soon as you create a database object, segment is created with initial number of extents dedicated to that segment, and extent size can be controlled as well. Extent would have certain blocks within it. Each extent would have certain blocks within it. Okay, now as soon as the segment is full, more extent will be allocated to this segment. Okay, so Oracle basically occupies, even if there is no data, those extents will be dedicated just for this segment. Okay, so this is how Oracle works. You create a table, certain segment extent have been dedicated. Those extents are full, more extents have been dedicated. Okay, all of that would come under, all those extents will fall under the same segment. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I wanted to give you a different view on the extend and segment in this tutorial. I'll see you in the next tutorial.